Hey, it's Harry. You're about to listen to Building, the podcast charting our journey to starting 1225, the audience first growth marketing agency. We want our podcast to be a very open and transparent look around the journey of starting an agency. And you're about to listen to one of the very first episodes where we haven't even decided the agency name, so you'll notice that does not get mentioned throughout these early episodes. We hope you enjoy listening.
Again, you've done it. You seem to do quite a lot of stuff at the minute just because of our different roles and bits and pieces, but Office last week on the previous episode was each doing our weekly commitments. What are we going to do to push this forward? Obviously working two jobs as well, it gets tricky, but if we commit to something, we need to try and do it. So
12-ish months ago, something like that, maybe a bit longer now, 18 months. The remit or the task that I was given was to make myself redundant, and the idea being so that I was ready to take that next step, getting even more removed from the day-to-day. But I guess I am still experiencing the fruits of that labor now, in the sense of because I am more removed from the day-to-day, I am able to carve out time a bit easier.
welcome to the third episode of our yet-to-be-named podcast on starting up a marketing agency. I'm joined today by my good friend Harry, and we'll just be talking through a number of different things today. I believe we're going to get into actually choosing a potential podcast name, or discussing it at least, and then we'll give you a status update on what we've been working on over the past week and a couple of other bits that we want to kind of discuss. I think, as you know by now, we're not experts at talking or creating podcasts, so a lot of this is a work in progress about, and also what we're going to be talking about in today's podcast, I think, as well. So, and to date it, to give it a bit of history, it's Monday, the 17th of April. We've just finished our full working day at our former job.
It's still our job. It's still our job until July. It's still our full-time gig.
Exactly. But by the time we launch this pod, it may no longer be.
Well, it shouldn't be.
Yeah, exactly. So unless something terrible's gone wrong here. But anyway, let's open the floor to you, Harry.
Well,
you want to lead the first section.
Before we open the floor, I want to pull you up on one thing already a minute in. But you described me as your good friend. You also missed out business partner. That is obviously what we're off to do. So is it friend or business partner first? I like to think it's friend first, but I'm sure we'll see how that spans out.
Exactly. It's friend, but that's a really good question, because I don't think it's sunk in what we've decided to do just yet, leaving well-paid jobs to start off on our own. I've got full confidence in our abilities, but yeah, it's still not quite sunk in, I think. So thank you for pulling me up on that front. I will make sure that I keep saying business partner from now on.
Yeah, I'll accept co-founder as well. I think that's okay. But what we're 2-3 episodes in, and I think we're starting to show those like stereotypical signs of partners, right? One of us is the risk taker, and one of us is a bit more reserved. Brendan does like to be a bit more, I guess, honest with where we're at in terms of like, I guess, learning as we go and things like that. Whereas I'm more tackle things head on, and just fake it till you make it is probably a bit more of my approach. Anyway, let's get into it. Brendan, you've had the awkward start 3 times now around what we call this podcast. And I think both our suggestions so far play into what I was just saying there around the different personality types we have. I know you wanted to potentially look at something sadly already taken around the what the fuck are we doing podcast, something like that. But I guess, again, going into, hopefully you don't mind me sharing this, might be a bit too personal. Obviously, in the current structure of where we're at, you are, I guess, one of my direct reports, and we hold like quarterly reviews and things like that. And I guess, what's the one piece of feedback I always give you?
Be more, well, with comms, to be more clear and concise. So maybe a podcast.
No. Clear and concise. But the other point is, like, you are very, very self-deprecating and do not give yourself the credit. And I think, sure, we're figuring some of this stuff out, but we've been doing this like combined 25 years. It's not like we have stumbled out of jobs in a completely different industry. So I think, again, it's very self-deprecating to go in with that approach, because fundamentally we do know what we're doing.
Yeah, I get that. But also this podcast is charting our journey about starting up a business, something we've not done before. So I think it can be a forum to be a bit honest at the same time. So that's where we're going to mix and kind of potentially even argue on this podcast. That would be fun, wouldn't it? So yeah, I understand what you're saying. So I will try and be a bit more, what's the word? It's not upbeat or positive, because I am about that, the challenge. But yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. And obviously we know each other very well. It's interesting. So yesterday we were meant to record, but we couldn't quite find some time. So I recorded a solo episode that may see the light of day at some point. And on that, I was talking about the fact that as we get towards like, I don't know, Christmas or the summer, we might have a 2 like slacking off episodes. And I think another thing that we should do is definitely retell our times at our previous agency. I think I described it on that pod episode yesterday, and not meaning any disrespect, but if you're ever going to write a 2023 version of The Office, that would be the place to base it on. And I do think we should look back over some of those times and maybe get a few of those people on the pod as well.
That would be amazing. I'd love to catch up with some of those guys. Honestly, good idea.
Anyway, let's get into it. So podcast names. We haven't fully fleshed this out, but we do need a name. We may get one in this episode. We might not, but I'm going to put my idea forward and I will await your feedback. So I'm going to go with a one-word idea, which is just building.
Okay, I'm starting to get... I'm putting some meaning towards that one word, but can you explain your idea further?
I get where you're going with the whole what the fuck are we doing idea and things like that, because essentially we are figuring some parts of it out, especially the I guess the business startup piece and then hiring teams, etc., etc. But obviously, I don't want to be as quite, I guess, self-deprecating as you do with that title. And fundamentally, what we're setting out to do is to build something pretty special. We will, I think, maybe next episode or the episode after, start to go into a bit more around what it is we're setting out to achieve. But fundamentally, from day 1 to day 5, day 7, year 5 or year 7, we're building that entire time. So my idea was I was going to go loading, because it's a bit more internet game kind of space, but I think that can give the wrong indication, whereas building seems more accurate. So I maybe building ... But that's the name that I'm bringing to the table for this week anyway.
You know what? I really like it. I think it does suit. The only question I have, and maybe we need to flesh this out a little bit, is just one word. Why one word?
It's because it's the only idea. Well, it's not the only idea, but it's the idea that I've settled on over the weekend of, I guess, spitballing and boring my partner to death over podcast names for an agency that doesn't even have a name yet. Yeah, that's just what I've come to so far. I think it encapsulates everything in one word. But like I said, we don't have to agree now. I can see there are some reservations in your face, so we can...
No reservations. I'm trying to find a veto for reasons why I don't like it, and I can't find them. And that's what I'm trying to find. But, you can have the podcast name if I can potentially get the agency name right in future. So I do like this.
I think that probably moves us on. So as of right now, then the podcast is going to be called Building, but I haven't done much research there. So there may be one that's already out there, or things like that. So we'll check back in next time for recording to see if that's what we've gone for. But that probably leads us quite nicely onto status updates for the week as well, because I think we might even have a name now for the agency.
Well, I think so. I don't know why, but this one task has been a bugbear of mine since it's coming up to 3-4 months since we've kind of started on this overall journey, going through all the tasks. Obviously, there's all sorts of different priorities, but for me, it's been trying to find a snappy name that we both agree on, that we're not kind of turned off by or anything like that. And it's oh yeah, that's a bit naff. I didn't want anything like agency, just random names and bits that don't mean anything to us. So yeah, I've used all sorts of different research techniques. Me and ChatGPT had a long conversation with different prompts. I was trying to get golf terminology involved because obviously we both like golf. But I think I've settled on an idea to share with you.
Yeah, I like it as well. I think we can be fairly open that at the moment we've been working with the working title on pretty much everything as E and G, but that is just because they're our surnames, right? And that's been the backup. I think as we've been going, saying if we can't think of anything by July the 1st, that's what we're going to go with. That's what the company is currently registered as, but we know we don't have to trade under that name. And the name you brought forward to the table in the last week, the reception to that has been much more positive for the, I guess, relatives and friends that I've floated it out to. And I personally do really like it as well. So I think we'll sit on it for a week. We'll discuss it with Jack, who I think you'll come on to in a little bit. But providing no changes when we record this time next week, I think we'll be able to announce the agency name.
Yeah, we're going to have to think of some special like jingle or something to announce it to, just to make it that much better.
Do you play the drums?
Hold on. I'm going to have to check what that is.
Oh, okay. No worries. We'll pause there. Okay, cool. For those listening, you may have noticed a pretty abrupt stop to things. Turns out Brendan's washing machine had made its way across the kitchen floor or something like that. So we had to make a quick pause. But Brendan, where were we at? I think something...
Yeah, I'm just saying we want to do something a little bit special, or try to. You'll probably listen to the podcast next week and we won't have thought of anything special for it, but some sort of jingle or kind of announcement, something that kind of marks it as a big milestone. We've got something, we've got a name, and we're moving forward.
Sounds like you're offering to sing.
Absolutely not. No one wants to hear me sing.
What we should have subtly done, if we were smart about it, is we could have had like references made to it in the background for an episode or two and then announced it. But sadly, not.
Oh, I like that.
Oh, well, yeah. Maybe we have to delay it another 3 weeks so you can have it in the background. But
yeah,
I'm sure
we'll find out next episode.
Yeah, we'll think of something. Cool. So what else have we done this week?
So this week you have managed to sort out our business bank account. So we're now flush with our cards and being able to log in. So we're going to be putting our director loans into the account so we can start getting set up with everything that we're doing. So how was that process for you? Relatively easy?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing, that flush is a strong word. I think if I log in right now, the amount is 0.00. But we do certainly have we have cards, we have a bank, we have the limited company registered. Yeah, process was pretty seamless. I had heard it from a few nightmare stories from people, but yeah, can't complain at all on that front. I think the thing that we are happy to share is we've seen a lot of stories around people starting agencies and things like that with like 100 quid, 500 quid in the bank and scaling up from there. We're in the fortunate position where that doesn't have to be the case, right? Like we've been able to invest in some infrastructure, in working with some specialists like Jack, who I think will hopefully have on the podcast in like a couple of weeks to a month's time. So the amount is higher than that. It's definitely not into the tens of thousands of pounds, but at the same time, we've invested a little more than perhaps necessary to just make sure that we're laying those foundations so that we're not, I guess, catching up. So again, something that I was thinking about over the weekend is there's always that tricky period that I think we've been a part of a few times where you go from like startup to scale up. But what tends to be the actual problem there is the business operations side of things more than the people side of things, like the hiring side of things. It tends to be things fall down from a business operations perspective. So investing in those kind of things from day one when it's just you and I allows us to breed that as part of the culture when hires come in and things like that. So that does take a bit more financial investment, but hopefully that will mean in a year, 2 years' time, there'll be slightly less pain for us to bear.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree with you. And I think this leads quite nicely onto our next activity over the past week. Again, you've done it. You seem to do quite a lot of stuff at the minute just because of our different roles and bits and pieces, but office.
Yeah, so I think it's funny. So at the place we're currently at, I am known amongst the directors as the person who likes to spend money. And I think that is something that we're experiencing at the moment. It drives my partner mad, right? Obviously, we're going to be budgeting at the moment to make sure we have runway for 3 to 6 months of no income coming in. And yeah, I do struggle on that front. And we've been trying to strike the balance. And that probably comes into, as you were saying, the office space. So if you read any playbook or any kind of startup story, there'll be references to starting in garages, starting in parents' rooms, starting in like we are now in our own home offices. But between us, we've both agreed that that's probably not best for us. Like, I'll be honest, like I'm craving going back to an office. I miss having that separation between work and home, and that's going to be even more difficult when we're running our own thing. But also just the net return I think we'll have in being in the same space, being able to continue to bounce ideas off one another, I think more than outweighs that initial investment for an office space. So yeah, I think we're breaking every rule in the book and going for an office space. The bit that we've been debating is how big do we want to go? So last week I went and checked out 3 offices. The dream office, which putting out there now in case the landlord is listening, is office 210, but that's a bit out of our price range at the minute. So the decision we had to make was, do we go for a smaller office, which would literally just get 2 desks, you and I in, or did we spend, I think, on our, like, it didn't work out as that much more expensive. I think it was like 60 quid more expensive per month. So what's that, like 700 quid a year more expensive to have an office at maybe 4 to 6 desks in? And what we've been debating is, which one do we go for?
Exactly. And I don't want the dynamic between us to be me, the risk averse one, and you, the let's go for growth all the time. So I feel like I'm always like the penny counter and like, no, we can't spend this, we can't spend that. But I think we came to an agreement by potential savings, I should add, in other areas in our budget. So we're going to go for the bigger office, aren't we, to set us up nicely?
Yeah, I think there's a few reasons for that. I think, like I said, like if you actually look at the price difference, there isn't a huge amount of difference. And the second thing is, I'm happy to share, I think, as this podcast develops, you'll see we steal quite a lot of other things from other podcasts, take learnings and things like that. And on the My First Million podcast, maybe a month or so ago, I heard someone talking about a phrase like 10x's, right? So people who can add 10 times their value to an organization, and that's what really sets companies up to succeed. And we know a lot of those 10x's. Now, we may employ some of them, we might not employ some of them, but the value in being able to just invite them into the office, spend time with them, they can work from there. I think that more than outweighs the £700 investment. And like we've been chatting to a few people this week that as soon as those doors open, hopefully they'll be there maybe once or twice a week. So in my view, it is the right thing to do. Yes, of course, it adds a bit more financial risk, but Brendan, as you said, we can save in other areas to make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of sorted. I'm all for that. So we've got an office now. We've got a potential podcast name. We're on the right track with everything. And one thing that we kind of committed to last week on the previous episode was each doing our weekly commitments. What are we going to do to push this forward? Obviously, working 2 jobs as well, it gets tricky. But if we commit to something, we need to try and do it. So, for you first, Harry, what have you been doing last week?
So I think we've covered quite a lot of what I've been doing. So a lot of admin, negotiations, talking, a lot of that in the background. But yeah, we've got the bank account set up. We have a contract pending. Albeit for the smaller office. So I do need to go back and say, actually, look, we're looking to spend a bit more cash. So that'll be on the list for today. And also been, I guess, tackling that target account list and really building that up. So I'm pleased to say of the commitments that I had, that they have been done. And we also, Brendan, not to mention, I think it's important to state this, that we've also started very slowly approaching people within our network as well to hopefully get some sales through the door.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was one of my commitments as well, to get in touch with an old client of mine. Nothing to do with the current workplace. So
yeah, that disclaimer in. I like.
Yeah, put that out there. But they were my favourite clients to work with back in the day. I really enjoyed working with that. And he just emailed me back today. So fingers crossed we can start having a conversation. Look, if nothing comes of it, that's fine, but it's good to reconnect because there's always opportunities in the future. So yeah, that shows me the power of connections as well. So I think for me, especially, it's about building out those connections now from the target accounts and actually speaking to old contacts that I might not have spoken to for a number of years. So that's a key focus. And also my other commitment was obviously to speak to Jack, who's helping us with our brand story and, how we kind of communicate about ourselves. he's kind of potentially agreed to go on the podcast, but I need to give him some further information to get him across. But yeah, towards the back end of the month, we'll get Jack on the podcast and talk about his processes and how he kind of comes about with like brand stories and elements like that. And it's good for everyone on this podcast to obviously meet some of the people that have helped us along our journey. So maybe that's where our journey, the journey piece comes into it all, with interviews with people like that. So yeah, productive week. Probably we still got some way to go on our target account list. So this week's commitment, I think we both committed to getting at least 25 accounts each on that list. So yeah, that can be tough. I've realised for some reason, and I don't know why, but I managed to exceed my LinkedIn kind of searches per month on my account. So I'm definitely going to have to reactivate Premium or even Sales Navigator so that I can actually keep going through this. I must have been searching for a lot of people over the past month there.
Yeah, so how are we looking for this week? What's on the list?
Yeah, so like I said, we've got the target accounts on that side. For me, it's little admin-y bits, just make sure I know that I can get into the bank account and stuff like that, potentially moving over some of the funds so that we can start spending those funds on things like the office and so on. And it's also, I'm going to reach out to some other former clients of mine. I've got a meeting with one of them on Friday, later this week, so that'll be interesting chat. And obviously with the clients that I've been speaking to and who emailed me back, I want to try and get that conversation, potentially go down and see them and grab a beer or something.
Nice, cool. And then on my side of things, very similar. So yeah, 25 target accounts will be hit this week, but also we're due to receive our first deliverable back next tomorrow. I think the 18th gives us 24 hours to turn that around and get out the door and back to Jack. So they're probably going to be my two biggest focuses, as well as continuing to negotiate on the office front. I do have a few, how did you describe it the other day, irons in the fire when it comes to sales opportunities. So working those as well. But I think one of the founding principles, Brendan, when we worked on that document as well, is focus. So not trying to do too many things at once. So keeping that to 2-3 things a week is how we, I think, between us keep that focus up, especially when we're trying to balance the fact that we're both essentially working two jobs now and also like have family lives as well. Granted, yours more intense than mine with a child as well. But yeah, I think we're making really good progress. And looking back, as we spoke about in the first episode, I think I can't wait to look back on these in 6 months' time when hopefully everything is flying, everything's going in the right direction. We have 1-2 hires in the door and thinking like incrementally we did come a long way in quite a short period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting, isn't it? Like this working two jobs. I'm probably more in the day-to-day than you are as well. Yeah. So it's probably a bit tougher for me to get out of it as such. There's a lot more meetings with team members, a lot more kind of bits that I need to be on hand with. And it almost consumes because you want to leave it in a good place. Obviously, I know you are busy as well, but for me, kind of day to day, it's a lot more ad hoc as well. People come to me with questions and we've got to kind of deal with them on the line. So that part, I'm kind of still struggling to get my head around a little bit, just to divide the line to make sure. Today, I mean, we jumped on at 4:00 on the dot pretty much and, started recording this podcast. So that's good. If we can keep doing that's really good. Then it's getting the house in order and bits and pieces like that, wrapping my head around, because again, with a young 2-year-old son running about the house as well, we can't record podcasts when he's here or, I've got to put him to bed and stuff. So it's working on those routines as well. So one thing's for sure, we've still got some annual leave entitlement. So we need to use that so we can get out and actually spend some time together and actually nail some of the pieces that we've got to go through. So let me know when you can book a couple of days and we'll get that done.
Yeah, I think the challenge will be getting those signed off together, right? Given, like you said, it tends to be that if you're off, I will cover for you and vice versa. But I can't see that being too much of a problem. Just in case anybody from the current agency is listening, I am still doing work, just despite what Brendan was alluding to there.
No, I said that, man. I know you're doing work. It's just a different type of work.
I'm joking. But no, you're absolutely right. Like when I took this role on 12-ish months ago, something like that, maybe a bit longer now, 18 months, the remit or the task that I was given was to make myself redundant. And the idea being so that I was ready to take that next step, getting even more removed from the day-to-day. But I guess I am still experiencing the fruits of that labor now, in the sense of, because I am more removed from the day-to-day, I am able to carve out time a bit easier. Like, again, not saying that during the hours of 8 till 4 I'm doing work on our thing, but what it does mean is it's easier for me to flick that switch, whereas for you there's always like that one other bit to do or that one other bit to do. So I'm lucky in that sense. And on the other front, in terms of personal life, yeah, like I got a dog that needs a walk in every now and then, well, a couple of times a day. But other than that, it's been a fairly smooth transition for me. So I'm definitely finding that balance a bit easier to find. But like I think that's natural, given like our home lives are a bit different, but also, like you say, our work lives are quite different as well.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, you've always kind of been a workaholic, working all hours, and I've kind of grown into that. Like I don't work as much as you do. But I think these different viewpoints on life and the different stages in life that we're both at, I think that helps us kind of work better together as well, because we'll have, like, especially when we get staff members join us and, you know, we start building the agency properly, we can actually, you know, have different viewpoints and different kind of ways of working, which will suit. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm also conscious of our time, because I'm going to have to go run and pick Elliot up soon from nursery, i.e. another job I've got to do that's not E&G. I think that's a natural kind of lead in to where we want to end this podcast, but we haven't found a good way of ending it just yet. So some jazzy, like, you know, tagline or something. Like some of my favorite podcasts, they end it, it's an American football podcast around the NFL, they end it, heed the call, and I really like it, because you know that's the end and you wait for next week. But you've got a suggestion, haven't you, on how we can end this podcast?
Yeah, I can see. So for everybody listening, we, before every episode, create like a very quick Google Doc with show notes in. And I can see Brendan has put a suggestion, which is swing well, putt true, which, Brendan, do you want to explain that one first?
Well, obviously we like playing golf. We play with a third member of our trio, Davey. And yeah, to start every round, I always like to start the round by telling the guys swing well, putt true. And when one of them tees off, it's usually straight into the trees on the left. But, you know, I just thought that's a nice, like, personal connection. But I understand we've got to work out where this podcast is going and actually kind of what the bounds are of the podcast. But that would be my suggestion. I think it suits quite well.
Yeah, I'm torn. Like, I do like it, but it is very goal specific. And as you said there as well, we say it at the start of the round. It's not like we finished a round, go have a beer, and then as we're leaving to go to our cars, wish each other well with a swing well, putt true.
But it could be a nice natural segue from podcasting to going to play golf.
Oh, I like it. So we're saying that we could do that. So moving forward, we could record on golf day and then finish recording and head to the golf course. I do like that. Yeah, like, again, I'm tempted to steal something from My First Million. I know they're very casual with that. Okay, yeah, that's it. That's the pod. But I think you've convinced me. You've let me have the name, so I'll let you have the sign off.
Okay. Let's try it. Let's see how it works. Okay. Do you want to say it?
No, this is it. This is your moment. Go for it.
Cool. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. That is the end of episode 3. Swing well, putt true. To help us build our audience, please like, share, and subscribe. If you listened on Apple or Spotify, please leave us a 5-star review. And if you watched us on YouTube, please leave a question or comment and we'll get back to you. Thank you.